And hey there, it's Tom Jordan, and we got a big show today because the president-elect, Donald Trump, is making his picks known for his upcoming cabinet. Pretty consequential decisions here, and among them are reports of Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, and also South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem for Homeland Security Secretary. He was a staunch supporter of enforcing illegal immigration laws, including beefing up border security. So in that vein, Donald Trump has also reportedly picked the former acting director of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to become border czar. Tom Homan is stepping up as the border czar in Trump's prospective administration here. Looking like that's how it's being formulated, prepared to tackle the crisis, which has been caused by the current Biden and Kamala Harris administration's you can call it lackluster border policies. I think was very intentional what they've allowed. This year alone, 2024, more than 3 million illegal border encounters. Those are the encounters just in the last year. This year alone, probably at least 11 million in just the past 3.5 years. Some estimates are 20, some even say 30 million because you can't track them all in the past 3.5 years. So Holman's experience in this, his dedication, his no-nonsense approach means a return to secure borders and really clear and enforced immigration laws. And so it's all an effort to reestablish national security and to prioritize the deportations of the high-risk individuals and build a border policy that puts American safety and sovereignty first. I've seen a lot of news reports over the past, week since the election day when the news media is putting out there the threat now to people's lives, and Donald Trump's going to go in and tear apart this country by deporting people who are here illegally. And it's this one-sided narrative that a lot of these both national left-leaning networks are putting out there and also these local news stations in these various markets is pretty unreal. So here's the deal. It's going to protect you and I. And Hispanic support is huge for this. Hispanic support, right? And the Border Patrol seems to really like this pick as well. So it's already rallying Tom Homan's pick and his return. It's rallying agents and a whole slew of veterans who share his commitment to a secure nation and to reclaim control at the border. We're going to get into all of that coming up in a few seconds with Michigan Senator Jim Runstad, who knows all about the border. He's been down at the border a number of times, and it's affecting his state of Michigan. Also, just a reminder to chime in, comment. Love to hear from you. Ask questions in the comment sections. I will get to those in a moment. And if you'd like to ask the senator some questions as well, put those in. We'll get to those during our conversation. Also, just a reminder, the very best way that you can help this program, Tom Jordan Live, simply subscribe to the videos, to the channel, whatever you're watching from. If it's YouTube, if it's X, if it's Spotify, if it's Facebook, if it's Apple Podcasts, subscribe and then watch the videos and the podcasts through. And we'd appreciate if you can share them as well. All right, let's get into this. Tom Homan, he's the former acting ICE director. He's been tapped by Donald Trump to lead border security. And he takes a very serious approach to controlling illegal immigration. It's a key issue that he says he believes was totally mishandled by the current administration, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. They didn't do anything. In fact, they encouraged it for sure. And Homan here, he's no newcomer to this. He's worked his way up the ranks from Border Patrol all the way to ICE, and it's a stark contrast in border policies to the border policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The Biden administration's policies led to, as I mentioned, nearly, or about, maybe more than 3 million illegal border encounters this year, 2024. Alone, just 1 year. And I would say probably closer to 15 million over the past 3.5 under Joe Biden's administration. And this is a surge that Homan has said, listen, he argues this is the direct result of policies under Joe Biden that welcome illegal immigration. They encourage illegal immigration, and frankly, they're hoping for it. So Homan's approach is starkly different. It's a return to these proven strategies like building a wall construction, targeted deportations that deter illegal crossings and keep communities safe. And Homan says he plans to prioritize the way he deports illegal immigrants who pose a direct threat to national security. We're talking about drug traffickers, cartel members, gang members, and especially anyone who has committed a crime in this country, in addition to committing the illegal immigration crime. They need to be prioritized to be the first to be deported. And it does restore a lot of morale among Border Patrol agents. There's no question about it. And they've been under attack. Effectively, that's how they feel, by Alejandro Mayorkas, the current Secretary of Homeland Security, who has allowed this and looked the other way and says there's nothing happening down there, there's no crisis, and he publicly shamed border agents. Remember the whole whipping thing that never occurred? He denounced something that had never happened to make his agents look horrible on the international stage. So I think the announcement of this, of Tom Homan, I know it has. It's already received widespread support from current and also former ICE agents who are eager for leadership that backs them up in just simply doing the job they've been called to do. So let's welcome back to the show Michigan Senator Jim Runstad, who's been down to the border on a number of occasions and has watched illegal immigration impact even his far northern state of Michigan. Hard to believe it's happening on a pretty wide scale in the state of Michigan, and being welcomed by not just the Biden-Harris administration, but also the Democratic administration of Governor Whitmer and the last 2 years under Democrat control in the House and Senate. Senator, it's nice to have you back in the program. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Always love being on the show. It's interesting that Soros is going to buy 2,000, I think, no, maybe it's 200 radio stations to basically stymie the flow of information, because I was reading about the establishment control, corporate media is dying. People are not listening to it anymore. They do not trust it. That was shown in the last election. One of the places people still go to for a trusted source where they feel they can actually interact, and that is talk radio. But it is now, I'm seeing, beginning to be purchased and starting the collusion process. So shows like yours are a place that people have to tune into, because it's one of the sources where they're going to get a straight shot of the truth, with not all the filtered lies that we're hearing from just about all the other news sources.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I've experienced the exact same thing in my previous two, locations of employment. That there is a collusion happening here, and it's very stark and it's very obvious to those who are in it. And obviously, it's becoming more obvious to those who are observing or listening to it, because it's like, okay, we're not hearing the full story here. And I think that this previous election, the one that just happened last Tuesday, and all the rhetoric that was leading up to it. And we saw it in 2020, but the engagement of reporters and even talk show hosts are allowing this, the real disinformation to perpetuate through these formerly trusted sources was very, very shameful. And I'm very ashamed of the status of legacy media news outlets right now. And I'm grateful now there is this avenue to do this, but I know you know this too, but there is a real effort even after the election. We're hearing calls from Democrats, far left progressives, saying we need to do more to censor information now on those podcasts and social media platforms, because look what happened. Donald Trump got elected. So we need to have a broader effort to silence conservatives, and that's not going to stop. And it's a shame that that's happening. But thankfully, there are a few people out there who are very powerful. Elon Musk being one of them, who is saying, no, we're not going to silence people anymore, because that is, in my opinion, Senator, what got people like Joe Biden elected in 2020, and I would say even Gretchen Whitmer in 2022, because suddenly she became a little bit more conservative than she was in her first term. It was amazing, and the media was all right there lockstep with her. So anyway, thank you for what you said. I appreciate it very much. What do you make of this pick? Tom Homan, the former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, from Donald Trump.
Well, I've been watching him on TV for years, and every time he came on, I'd tell my wife, "Oh, Tom's on." So hold on, I got to listen to this, because it was speaking the truth, when so much of what we were hearing is absolute lies. I will correct you on one of the statistics. You said it was probably around 15 million illegals that come over in the last almost 4 years. When I was down at the border, we had the federal border patrol agents, we had the state of Texas, and then we had sheriffs from all over the that entire South area. And they consistently said it was over 30 million illegals have come over. They said, do not believe the media, the lying media. It's over 30 million. They said the minimum is 30 million because they have a sense of how many are pouring across. You know, they can monitor this stuff. But of course, the media, when I was down there both times, I was down there for like 3 days one time, 4 days the other, and we were hearing consistent testimony on everything that's going on down there. Not a single media outlet down there. They're just like Kamala Harris. They just don't go. They said, well, if we get a question about illegal immigration, we'll call the Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas, and they'll tell us everything we need to know. I mean, just worthless. I mean, if I was a reporter, I'd be embarrassed and ashamed at the modern establishment corporate media that just basically whores for the Democrat Party. Is despicable to disgusting, but that's the way they roll. And again, if people want the truth, they've got to go to a source like this show, talking to somebody who was actually down at the border, talking to and documenting. There's so much documentation they gave us that I might gather a lot of that information. You're simply going to be lied to by the corporate media. I was reading somewhere that somewhere between 4 and 7% of reporters are Republican, and I think that seems high, that number. But all of these media people, these reporters, get into a room together and they collude. I was talking to a reporter that said when Trump won, they were sobbing and crying. The whole this big newsroom covering it were sobbing and crying. And then when Biden won, they were just high-fiving and cheering and leaping through the air because they're a bunch of hacks. They, instead of being trying to look through a prism of objectivity, they look through the prism of how does my reporting help my party, my Democrat Party.
Yeah, the first time I saw that happening was the Barack Obama, in terms of the outright support of a particular candidate, was Barack Obama. And when he was elected and he came into, I think it was the Washington Post, he walked in and the entire newsroom stood up and applauded and was cheering that he got elected. I'm like, this is so untethered from what journalism is supposed to be, and they don't care anymore. It's advocating a particular party, particular narrative, and a particular ideology. And you're right, the people are crying. I mean, I'm astounded by the number of universities that have shut down. They've canceled classes. They've told their students, you don't have to turn in your assignments here because I know you're grieving now. And there's little rooms, safe spaces. They're giving college students coloring books to deal with their grief and their post-traumatic stress disorder and to me, the reason why they are suffering, and the reason why these students are suffering is because they have been lied to, they've been indoctrinated with this belief that if a certain party gets into office, they will be authoritarianism, and they will come and they will lock you up and put you in these internment camps. And it's the journalists who I'm most ashamed of, because they've listened to people like, I'll just say her name, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who says she is so civil, telling them as a, quote, trusted source of information that Donald Trump is going to create internment camps and lock up his political opponents, and he's going to specifically lock up Arabs and Muslims and keep them imprisoned in these camps because he simply doesn't like them and he has unchecked authority. All of that is a lie, completely made up. And it's a shame that these reporters, I think they're willingly naive, some of them are, but you're right. I think it's about 96, 97, 98% newsrooms are filled with far left ideologues who are acting like journalists. All right, I keep going on this route because it's so damaging to our country. The whole purpose of the First Amendment, one of them was to allow the freedom of the press so they can hold these people accountable for their out-and-out lies. Anyway, all that said, we go to Tom Homan now, and here's a guy who has already gotten death threats already because he's been named as the new border czar. And he's undeterred in all of this. But what do you think is behind those types of threats against somebody who used to be celebrated in this country, keeping our nation secure?
Well, he's in opposition to the long-term goal. The long-term goal, the reason that the Democrats are so hell-bent on millions and millions and millions of illegal immigrants is the long-term goal. And the long-term goal is a couple of things. One, in our census, because the Democrats collude to violate every single constitutional provision they can in order to gain power. They just don't. They think it's a piece of toilet paper that they want to run roughshod over, and so they want to bring these people in because you get counted in the census. So you get for presidential electors. So in a state like California, New Mexico is now, depending on the parts of Arizona, they want as many illegal immigrants to bump up the number of congressional seats. So even if 50% of the entire congressional areas here illegally, that adds another congressional seat into these Democrat areas. Also, same thing with the presidential electors; they get counted in the census, so it bumps up in the Democrat areas more presidential electors. So that's the long-term program. The other one is that just like in that bill that you saw, that they were saying it was a great bipartisan bill. It was a pile of garbage. It was allowing legally 2 million people to come in per year. It was sending, I think, $5 billion a year to the UN in order to reroute the money into the southern border for immigration, helping immigration. But in talking to the Border Patrol, they said all of the money that they're seeing in those debit cards is coming from the UN, and it's coming from the United States, routed through the UN. And yes, they
Yes.
were getting $5,000 debit cards, and Catholic and Lutheran socials, I guess mainly Catholic social services, was on the other side of the border filling out the paperwork for them because they didn't know how to fill out the paperwork for this, and to get the 5,000 when they came to the United States. But then they would charge them a big filing fee when they came over that was close to the 5,000 Catholic social services to take that money from them. And then what was left, they were getting paid $1,500 per person to stay in these nice hotels because they all have to be secured and all of this stuff was $1,500 they were getting from the feds, but they were charging the regular room rates like $250 for the illegal out of the debit cards to soak the money up. The thing is so corrupt. We're routing money into the UN. All of this would have been codified into law if the Democrats had got this bill through. And there's, yes, when you talk about how many Republicans are in on this, there are always going to be these whoring Republicans. I see it in Lansing as well as in Washington, way more than the Democrats. I don't know what's wrong, what's in the water with these Republican colluders. They'll sell their mother's birthright, anything they could for power control status. So every time it's a bipartisan bill, I tell people whenever it's a bipartisan bill, it's those same group of Republicans, the same scumbags who are all going to do anything that is going to get them some more, tickets to the ball game, maybe to the Lions playoff, and they're going to go to some big soiree or get a boat ride, or those are the people that were voting for that big pile of garbage, a bill that was being sold to us as a bipartisan bill to stop illegal immigration. No, it was codifying illegal immigration.
Yes, exactly. And it was redefining the word illegal and making it legal because it creates new pathways to come across the border legally, even though, prior to the bill being signed into law, if it had passed, it would have been an illegal immigrant coming across that border. So that's the ruse. And I'm glad it wasn't signed into law, but I wish, again, that the media would cover it accurately and maybe do a little digging and read the bill for themselves and be honest about what it really would have done. You mentioned the Republicans and the few that are out there that are buying into some of these, I don't understand it, far left ideologies. And I think it is the cushy lifestyle and the power that they want to hold on to. And this allows them to do that. And I'm going to take a question and comment here in just a moment. But before I get to that, I want you to touch on something that's happening in the state of Michigan. A couple years ago, there was this attempt to put on the ballot this effort to make Michigan a state that does the popular vote. Meaning, the way I understood it back then was that no matter how Michigan voted in a presidential election, whichever candidate received the most votes, the popular vote around the country, our electoral votes would go towards that candidate, regardless of how we voted in a state. And that was being supported by some Republicans, but primarily Democrats. That never came to a vote. I thought that was done away with. Well, now today, in this lame duck session now of the Michigan legislature, they're bringing this whole thing back up. So what is this idea of a popular vote for the state of Michigan? What are they voting on, and what could it potentially do?
So the original concept in the Constitution was to have forms of representation to make sure that one dominant area, one dominant state would control all the rest. And this was same thing with the senators. Whether you're little South Dakota or Rhode Island, you get two senators. And the same thing if you're, New York, with the biggest state, you get two senators. And the same thing with the Electoral College. They didn't want a few of the big demographic areas to control the entire nation. So they had the Electoral College so that you would have representation by each one of the states. And that was the design, and I believe it's worked very, very well. But the Democrats understand they have the big population centers. And in general, there may be an exception. Donald Trump did win the vote total this time. But in general, those really prevail over the rest of the smaller states. So it was designed to give the smaller states some representation. Well, the Democrats have this grand idea of getting rid of that and having the national popular vote so that the popular vote just runs roughshod over all of these protections that were built into the Constitution. Now, it's absolutely terrible for the Democrats because these few big states, particularly as they pour in the unbelievable numbers of illegal immigrants to be counted in this process, it's very destructive. So why would the Republicans do it? I have been, as long as I've been in office, there's Republicans who, and it's a large number, who view their time in office as a personal benefit. The prism they look through is a personal benefit to them, not the party, not the principles, not the ideology, not the state, not the country. What do I get personally? That is what their motivation is. Am I going to get the Lions playoff tickets? Am I going to go to this big soiree? Am I going to get this yacht trip with all these girls? All this stuff that they're willing to collude that is not in the interest of anything outside of their personal interests. So Soros and all of these big donors have been flying legislators from Michigan and other states all around the state and I even hear the world to get them to go for the national popular vote. I remember what a journalist called me one time and said, "Jim, so did you go to Hawaii on that big national popular vote trip?" And I said, reporter, of the 10 million people in the state of Michigan, the last guy who's going to get offered for that is me, because there's no way in hell I'm going to support this stuff. So anyway, it's very discouraging that we have people, and we'll see today, the Democrats, from what I'm hearing, are putting up a vote on national popular vote today. I also heard some of their members are not want to vote for this. They're now finally starting to wake up after their shellacking that they pay a price for their just relentless far left agenda. So they may have to pick up some Republicans. So we'll see, is there Republicans going to cross over on this disastrous bill? And by the way, they're getting close to the number of states they need to pass this. So it's very important that it be defeated in Michigan.
Yeah, that's the issue is that they need a certain number of states to support it, and they've got a number already. But Michigan was a couple years ago. They were pushing this through, and I guess they're still doing it. But real quickly, then I'll get to my some comments here. What would that do for Michigan specifically? Like if a majority of Michiganders voted for, let's say in this election, we'll use that as an example. They voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump won the vote in Michigan, and Kamala Harris did not. But if you look at the national popular vote, if Kamala Harris had won more of that, would our votes in Michigan go towards Kamala Harris instead?
Yes.
See,
Yeah,
that's the
so
thing.
even if Donald Trump won Michigan, it really is irrelevant. It's just what is the national popular vote, and that's all that would matter. There's all you would have the politicians doing, the candidates for president would be going to New York, California, maybe Texas, at least for now. Illinois, these massive, big population centers because they are so heavily weighted in terms of the national popular vote that that's where they would spend their time. They wouldn't even
Okay.
come to Michigan.
Yeah, right. They wouldn't at all. And in fact, and it would increase the value of the illegal immigrants that they brought across the border over the past, 3.5 years. Let's take a comment here and maybe a question. I don't know what it says yet, but Cameron's going to bring it up here on the screen. Harold Sakalian is back with us. Hi, Tom. Have you heard that if illegals do not self-deport, they cannot apply to enter legally for 10 years? Thanks, Harry. Uh, Senator, have you heard that if illegals do not self-report, they cannot reapply for coming into? Let's bring that back up so we can read it correctly, Cameron. But they can reapply to come back in this country legally for 10 years. Is that true? Do you know about that?
I have not heard that, and I wonder if that's a proposed bill because I
Yeah.
certainly have not heard that. And even if it is, the Democrats don't pay any attention to the law. I mean,
Right.
even if they said by law you can't come in for 10 years, they said, "Come on, bring your family, bring your friends." They don't care. Bring the cartels, bring the fentanyl, bring yeah. They just don't care.
They don't.
But fortunately, it looks like we're going to have the trifecta on the federal level if the Republicans are going to put these bills up and if they can get majorities. The Democrats here in Michigan, with a 2-seat majority in the House and 2 seat in the Senate, have run the most far left aggressive agenda in the history of the nation. California rejected a lot of the bills as too liberal that the Democrats have passed in Michigan. So they hold their people together and they ramrod through this horrible leftist legislation, something that will help the nation, like stopping this illegal immigration. Are we going to get a majority of the Congress, the House and Senate Republicans to do it? I remember Paul. He was the speaker back when Trump was there.
Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Paul Ryan stopped all the legislation
Yeah.
that Trump wanted to get rid
Hmm.
of the anchor, the baby. When you're born here, you're instantly a citizen, and all of these other things. And Paul Ryan stopped him. Are we going to run against this again? With Lindsey Graham and all these McConnell and all these people, are they going to be stopping the legislation again? Like I said, I get so frustrated with the Republicans who say something at the door when they're running for the office, and when they're elected, they govern like Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we've got people who are going to fight like Donald Trump for this country.
Right. And they do that under the guise of civility. We just want to get along and be bipartisan. So they allow, yeah, what happened in 2017 with Paul Ryan there, the Republicans were not able to get a lot done that they promised they would get done if they got the House and the Senate and then the Oval Office, and they had it all. But hopefully this time around that doesn't occur. Let's bring up one more comment, one more question here for the Senator Jim Runstad from the great state of Michigan. This is Arlene. Wouldn't a legal challenge of the NPV lose by the SCOTUS? Would a legal challenge of the national popular vote, is what she's saying, lose by the SCOTUS? Would the Supreme Court step in, do you think?
No, because it's completely illegal. There are provisions to change the Constitution, And this is the route that you take. You have to get, I believe it's three-quarters of the states to
Yes.
agree to a constitutional provision, or you can have a constitutional convention. It's completely consistent with the Constitution. The process is, and all of these very, I think, good things, like when they wanted to pass something to create a cap on how much borrowing and spending that the government can do, or get rid of term limits and stuff. Nothing like that ever seems to get over the line that empowers the people, the average person in this country. But something like this that disempowers a state like Michigan. There is so much Soros money. Like I said, the people who the Detroit News covered it. A lot of people who were going on these trips. I mean, how dare
Mm-hmm.
you just go on this lavish trip? Oh, to study the national popular vote. That's why we're going.
Right.
We're going to with our wife or our husband, and we're going to go on this lavish trip to study the national popular. Oh yeah, we're going to get
Right.
boat rides, and we're going to go watch this
Yeah.
giant waterfall in Hawaii to study the national popular vote. That's the problem we're running across.
Yeah, there's a library down the street. You can go study there if you don't have a home office. You can just do it right there. Let's bring up one more, then I want to ask you a few more questions before we let you go here. One more from Arlene. If you have time to discuss, can Senator Runstad share with which cities and areas in Michigan are sanctuary areas? Very important question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, Senator, but Arlene poses a very, very important discussion. Are there sanctuary areas still, like is Washtenaw County one of them, or maybe what's the other one? I think it was Ingham County may have been one. What do you think?
Yeah, there's two different definitions there. A sanctuary kind of area um, is Detroit and Ann Arbor, which they're not completely a sanctuary city. Like I think it's Ingham County. I believe there's three counties that basically, if you're an illegal immigrant, you do whatever you want. I mean, you're above the average citizen. Things that
Hmm.
the average citizen could be thrown in jail for, they won't for an illegal
It's like
immigrant.
you have diplomatic immunity almost, is what it ends up being.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy. And then Detroit and Washtenaw. No, it's Detroit and Ann Arbor, I believe. Or it was Washtenaw or Ann Arbor. They have put in provisions, a lot of the same provisions. It's not as comprehensive, but they're basically sanctuary cities where you can do your will in most cases and simply not be deported. So yeah, that's something. Every time we put that bill up to try to ban sanctuary cities, it's uniform. Every Democrat votes against it. Their 100% goal is getting as many illegal immigrants into Michigan, into the United States as possible for an amnesty that they're hoping will come down the pike. And then all these will become Democrat voters. The Hispanic population that's been here came either legally or maybe their parents or grandparents did, but they're now citizens, as we've seen, are not as controllable as someone who comes across the border. They don't speak English. Maybe they have an eighth grade education. That's the average education level. Have not a penny to their name. And you have the Democrats saying, well, immigrant, we're going to give you everything. We're going to give you, housing. We're going to give you a big screen TV. We're going to give you free Medicare, everything. And the Republican says, we're going to give you an opportunity to, go out and earn a living. They're going to go, no, I want all that stuff.
Right.
So
That
that's why
is
the
why they're coming
Democrats,
here. Yeah.
yeah, because they get every benefit.
Yeah, I was covering this back in 2021. I think it was November 2021, when there were huge numbers of caravans, 10,000 people caravans coming in from Tapachula, Mexico, and then Guatemala, coming on through, and they were these NGOs, as you mentioned, a couple of them with was it Catholic Charities and Lutheran something services.
Yep.
They were helping them come across, and there is a lot of money being made in the process as well. But they were telling them how to get across. Now legally because of Joe Biden. This whole expansion of amnesty started with Barack Obama. He's the one who really started expanding it. It's been going on for a while, and people called it out back then. They were called racist for doing so. But you hear these proponents of a borderless world that's out there. And we see it happening in Europe in real time. And these proponents of like no borders, what they're arguing is that borders are artificial constructs that are meant to marginalize people, while critics see them as essential for preserving order and preserving security, not just nationally, but in your own communities as well, and your own identity as a nation, which is still important. How do you think that debate has influenced the whole idea of this immigration policy in both Europe and now what we're seeing happening in the United States in the past 3.5 years?
It's all done by design because if you have a population that's educated about the traditional values of the Western society and the Magna Carta and the Constitution and all of these things that you have to be a part of that whole society to inculcate this into the population so that people see a value to the country, a value like in the United States. The people of my age, we were taught that this was the greatest country in the world, not just because of the soil, but because of the Constitution. As far as I could tell, we're the only nation in the world with a First Amendment. The reason that we are able to have this conversation is the First Amendment. If the deep state Democrats had their way, this show would be banned tomorrow. Every time we talk about free speech or anything like that, in Lansing, the Democrats are on the other side. They're on the other side of all, it seems like the freedoms that made this country great. They don't want it. They want collusion. They want control. They want power. And so when you have a population come in here who know none of these values, and then all they learn when their kids go to school is this is the worst racist, xenophobic, hate-filled country, and that we need to crush all opposition and give it all to the federal government. They know that that's what gives them power. So they want as many people here who don't have that background. And the people like me, they're hoping that will die off because we know the history of the country. We were educated back when we were taught about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the values and what the founding fathers fought for. Now they say they're a bunch of old, racist white men who just took care of themselves. Nothing could be further than the truth. These were the greatest heroes, put everything on the line, would have been hung, drawn, and quartered, the worst torture imaginable if they lost the revolution. None of that's taught. It's all just this is the worst country. And that's what they're doing in Europe. The same thing. They tell them these are the worst, rotten, racist countries, and you got to look to your big governments to protect you and give all your rights and power to the federal government in these countries in order to have freedom. An Orwellian concept, and that's
Yes.
what they're doing
Yeah.
all around the country, all around
Right.
these Western world.
The Western world, Western societies, which used to be, bastions of freedom for the most part. We've had our issues with, the UK, Britain. Of course, that's why we left and started this great country. But this whole idea. I mean, when you look at the borderless societies, those kinds of things, those were ideas that were really supported by guys like Karl Marx and Engels. These are communist ideas that always lead to oppression. And you can see it now with these college students who are besides themselves because they were told a dictator has won the election. They've been brainwashed and they've been manipulated by, I believe, a very evil regime. And not Kamala Harris specifically as an individual, but that whole ideology behind it is that you need to label a whole group of people so incredibly evil that if they win, your life is going to be destroyed. And that's what Karl Marx would do. He would set groups of people against each other to destroy society and start anew. You build back better. And that was their whole platform. And that's what they are doing. And I do feel very sad for I do hope there's people reaching out to these individuals who are so distraught that Donald Trump won, thinking that their lives are over, when in fact they might very well be just beginning if they can start seeing the light. Not that Donald Trump is in and of himself some great individual. It's the ideology that led to the Constitution to protect every individual citizen, like those college students are now fearful for their lives for no good reason. Well, one final question, I'll let you go. Tom Homan, what do you hope he does, along with the partnership of Kristi Noem, if she does become Secretary of Homeland Security in step with the President-elect Donald Trump? What are the first things they need to do to secure the border?
Well, the Remain in Mexico, which was a fabulous success, that what you'll find happening, Mexico has been complicit with bringing caravans, buses, trains with millions and millions of people. They bring them up to the border, and then the cartels ship them over. And the
Hmm.
Mexican government said, as long as you ship them, the cartels are good friends, and Biden's good friend. As long as you're getting them over there fast enough, then we're okay with this immigration. The minute Trump says no, it's Remain in Mexico, they're going to go, well, oh, seal the southern border of Mexico. No more of these caravans are coming in. The minute that those cartels and all these millions of people are held up in Mexico, you're going to see Mexico staunch that southern flow. But the Biden-Harris administration, they wanted it. They were colluding in every way.
Hmm.
You're also going to have to do something about these visa overstays. The Venezuelans have been coming over mainly by these visa overstays. They come over and they just vanish into society. And Trump was absolutely right when in talking to the border patrol down there. They said that the Venezuelans, because so many countries we have an agreement. So if it's a criminal, we send them back. Venezuela is at war with the United States, and they are not taking back any of these people. The worst, he has emptied his prisons out, his insane asylums into the United States. This is what the Democrats, they couldn't care less. The whole world, we learned the whole world, the cartels have communication with every major criminal element in the world and are colluding to bring these people over here. For a high value person like a communist operator or somebody like that, or somebody from Iran, they pay 100 to 150,000 to get that person in these countries. So they take good care of these high value. I mean, very dangerous to the country, but the Democrats couldn't care less. So stopping that flow through these visa overstays, stopping the flow through Remain in Mexico, building the remainder of the wall, and then starting with deporting the criminals. But as Tom Homan said, he said, well, you'll be breaking up the families. He said, no, if they just came over here across the border, they all go back together. They stay together, but they're all going back. That's the way you have to solve this problem. You have to get serious about it, or we won't have a country left. And that's what the Democrats want, this divided society at war with each other. That's the entire goal. That's the oldest way of divide and conquer, to get power, to get control, to be the string puller at the top of society, controlling everything. And that is the end goal.
100%. I'm really grateful you're talking about this. I think what's important for people like you and me and other people to ignore the pushback from the lies that are going to be told about us and about the realities of these issues and continue to do what we know is the right thing to do, protecting even those who are our political enemies, if you want to call them that. It'll make their lives better as well. Just keep doing what is right, because already the media is coming out and saying that, Donald Trump is going to return to his family separation policies now that he is the, whatever he is, the president-elect. That's not what he's doing. We know it's not the case. And so we appreciate you speaking out on this, because it has impacted your state, my state, the state of Michigan, and every other state in this country. This one issue of illegal immigration is such a way to divide this country and to separate it and eventually conquer it. So I appreciate the work you're doing, and good luck today. I know we got a lame duck session now in the state of Michigan, and you've got a far left party still in control until the end of the year, want to push through a lot of progressive bills, including this national popular vote thing they want to get through this week. So good luck to you. Stand strong, and very much appreciate your time. Senator Jim Runstad from the great state of Michigan. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Always love being on the show.
Thank you. Love having you. We'll have you back very, very soon. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's amazing what's happening. I know that there's this, there was a mandate essentially that the voters put forth as, you look at the state of Michigan now is going to have a Republican majority House of Representatives, which is going to stem the rapid flow of this far left ideology within the state. But before they take power or take positions in their seats in January, there is still a very far left progressive party in charge, and they're going to try to put through these things that are so damaging. It makes the state of Michigan, the citizens in the state of Michigan, basically inconsequential. Your vote doesn't matter anymore. If this national popular vote goes through this week, I'll be watching that very closely. But if it goes through, then and Governor Whitmer will probably sign it, because it means her party has more power on a nationwide level. They're taking away local control, which is what Democrats seem to really like. They love the centralized power in Washington, D.C., and giving you less of a vote or a voice. And this is just the way they've been operating. And you think about it, less of a voice for people we don't agree with. And that goes down to the First Amendment again, the whole idea of free speech. A lot of what happens beginning in 2025, when we look at the House of Representatives, which it looks now the Republicans will have the majority in the House, National House of Representatives, along with the U.S. Senate, and they'll have the Oval Office. But a lot depends, as Senator Jim Runstad just pointed out, on leadership within the House. So Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House when Donald Trump first took his, stepped foot in the Oval Office back when he had his first term, and he opposed many of Donald Trump's policies. So he held him up. Republicans didn't unite on these issues. So the race now is on. And I know the House of Representatives this week, a lot of people meeting, long session to figure out who is going to be like leadership positions within the House of Representatives. And of course, that's happening in the Senate as well. And the race is on to see who will become the Senate Majority Leader, replacing Mitch McConnell as the GOP's longtime, elder statesman for the GOP. And Elon Musk, the CEO, of course, of X and SpaceX and Tesla, he's thrown his support behind Florida's Senator Rick Scott for Senate Majority Leader. Elon Musk's. And the reason why, his endorsement follows a high-energy campaign season supporting President-elect Donald Trump, posting simply, here's what he wrote, Rick Scott for Senate Majority Leader. That's what Elon Musk wrote on X. And Musk's backing instantly ignites speculation and raised Scott's profile in the upcoming GOP leadership race. There are some other ones in the Republican Party who are wanting that seat as well. Senator Thune from South Dakota, he's more of a moderate. He's kind of a Mitt Romney-esque type of member of the House, so they don't want him in that race. So the Republicans now holding both the White House and the Senate, and likely now the House of Representatives, a new majority leader will be crucial in advancing Donald Trump's agenda. Senator Mitch McConnell, who holds the record as the longest-serving GOP Senate leader, announced he would not be seeking another term, leaving that field wide open. Scott, once seen as kind of a dark horse in this, is now gaining momentum with endorsements, as we said, from Elon Musk and then fellow GOP senators as well, even as he faces these pretty big heavyweights like John Cornyn and like John Thune, as I previously mentioned. And while Trump has not yet endorsed a candidate, he urged Republican senators to back these recess appointments, which would speed up the process. This move would likely ensure smooth cabinet confirmations under his administration. It's not going to be drawn out over a 2-year period, which is their big concern if you don't allow recess appointments. When you're in recess, still allow people to be appointed to their positions as they've been selected by the executive office. So it would lead to a more smooth transition for this administration. And the GOP Senate leader election is coming up. There's going to be a secret ballot on Wednesday, and we'll be watching that closely. Wednesday is already tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. We'll keep you informed. In Michigan, the aforementioned great state of Michigan, the new push there for universal pre-K is sparking now concern among private child care providers. Used to be a booming industry, if you want to call it that, in the state of Michigan. But Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Pre-K for All initiative aims to offer free pre-kindergarten to all 4-year-old children, which will be managed by the newly created Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, or Potential. It's also called MyLeap for short, to set up every child for indoctrination. Set up every child for success, is what she said. But I mentioned the indoctrination. That's what critics are saying. Listen, there's going to be a lot of consequences here for these kids. And if you just want to take it on a business perspective, obviously it's not good for private child care centers because you've got to abide by certain, principles that Gretchen Whitmer has put in place. But as an aside here, when it comes to lifelong education for children set up by the government, I know what they're planning to do is from the womb to the tomb to educate your children for you. And this is what early childhood education is all about in this state of Michigan and other states as well. It sounds wonderful on the surface, but I know for certain that what these early childhood educators want to do is take education away from the parents, even the even infant care for the kids. Provide all the things for them, the whole child, the health care, the food, the clothing, and then the education as well. So the government becomes the parents, so to speak. It takes a village, is what they say, and parents have fewer and fewer rights in this. So that is the plan, and parents are now being educated. A long-term effort to re-educate parents on why this is better for their kids if the government kind of takes the reins of raising your children. There's a woman named Carrie McDonald. She is an expert in private education, and she says that similar universal programs have edged out private providers in other states, leading to a whole slew of fewer options for families, and ironically, higher costs for those who want alternatives. So if you don't want the state raising your kid and you do want to go to a privately funded, pre-K program, it's going to cost you a whole lot more. So there you have it, the de-incentive to not partake in these private things. You got to do what the government wants you to do. New regulations being put in, potentially funneling parents into these public programs. You just go this way, not that way, driving a cost for private care. Lawmakers are already pushing to remove a requirement that some funds be allocated to private providers, making it tougher for private centers to compete in this. You got to stick with the ideology that the state wants you to have, and the state wants your children to have as well. Michigan is the goal here is to serve 75% of its 4-year-old population in public pre-K by next year. 3/4 of all 4-year-olds need to get into this program by next year. So private child care centers are seeing a very grim future. It costs a lot to keep them running, and there's going to be fewer people going to them, and it's going to cost them even more to run the facilities and to send your kids there. So it's just beginning, this whole story is. And for many private providers, that fight to stay open is just beginning as well. Ironic. We were just talking about this, I guess coincidentally, the other day about we were looking at some potential private child care facilities for some members in the community. And this issue came up, and it's a serious issue. All right. Let's turn to the FBI. Senior FBI officials at headquarters are reportedly reeling. They're not happy that Donald Trump won the election. Insiders are describing as sending shockwaves through the agency's top ranks. And these, the seventh floor brass there, known for their executive authority at the FBI, are said to be in shock. And they're even preparing to exit before Trump's second inauguration. And some sources are revealing to some news outlets that the anxiety in there stems from Donald Trump's history with the agency. He's got a history there, right? The FBI has been going after him for quite some time. And, remember Donald Trump, who has the authority to do this, he fired the former director of the FBI, James Comey, back in 2017, just after Donald Trump took office. Why? Because James Comey, the former director of the FBI, was spying on his campaign and got these fake court orders to allow him to do so, and then to spy on him in the Oval Office. The FBI was spying on the president without the president's knowledge, and they were spying on members of the House of Representatives, wiretaps, all of these different things that should be illegal to do in this country. So yeah, James Comey was fired, rightfully so. So with Donald Trump's return, top FBI personnel now are anticipating some significant turnover, and even describe a countdown to the day Trump might replace the leadership that's currently in place, including the current FBI director, Christopher Wray. And so the prospect of the billionaire Elon Musk overseeing a government efficiency commission also adds some pressure there. Maybe they're overspending at the FBI. And, Elon Musk has a reputation for some pretty lean, efficient operations. So a lot of people in the FBI, these officials, these higher ups, maybe some mid-managers, are concerned that, sweeping cuts are on the horizon as well as they work away there on their keyboards there. By the way, under the Biden administration, agents were focused heavily on investigating January 6 defendants, but Donald Trump's promised pardons could swiftly reverse this work. There's been a lot of evidence. Vivek Ramaswamy has come out now in support of making sure that the evidence of the FBI participating in January 6 and maybe instigating the riot itself by throwing these, what were they called, smoke bombs into the crowds. And there's a lot of now evidence out there, if you've seen the video, that shows that might in fact be the case. So we should look at that. We should take it seriously. And Vivek Ramaswamy, who used to not believe in any of this, says, I've seen now the evidence, and it is very disturbing what the FBI may have been doing prior to and during January 6th, the riots there at the Capitol. So a lot of, as you might imagine, high-level staffers at the FBI are pretty frazzled and bracing for potential cuts in the ranks into some organizational change. All right, that's the ugliest building. I think the FBI headquarters there got awarded the ugliest government building, I think, in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. And you can kind of see it, maybe deserves it. All right, let's take some comments and some questions here on Tom Jordan Live. Let's bring him up. Cameron is bringing up. The engineer, I would like to see a new FEMA director, one that would help people no matter who they support. New York Times falsely claimed that FEMA was not treating Trump supporters differently. The engineer, you're correct on this because you and I both saw new information that came out and some testimony from people within FEMA who were asking the FEMA support for the hurricane that ravaged North Carolina. Remember Florida? They said, listen, if you see Donald Trump signs in those people's yards, skip them when it comes to helping them out and go to the others first. That was from FEMA. They were politicizing the resources, who was going to receive the life or death assistance based on their political persuasion or their ideology or who they just simply supported as president of the United States. Why is that? Well, FEMA apparently doesn't want Donald Trump to be in office. So if you support Donald Trump, you're not going to get assistance from the Federal Emergency Management Administration, even though your house has been completely destroyed by a hurricane and rising floodwaters. Hey, you support Donald Trump, so you don't get any help from us. That was testimony from an insider within FEMA who was directing assistance. And I'm glad you brought that up, the engineer, because when I saw that, I was just, I guess I wasn't completely shocked because this is how the government works under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It is they politically weaponize their various agencies, including, of course, the Department of Justice, but also these rescue operations are highly politicized, and they should be ashamed. The engineer, always good to hear from you. Thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate it so much. We got another one here. Let's get to that before we have to say goodbye here. Orlando Hodges is back. Can the Trump administration change this national popularity vote? No, I don't think so. I think what happens is if you get a majority of the states, I think it's 3/4 of the states that, each one individually supports a national popular vote, that amends the Constitution. And there's not a whole lot you can do after that. That is the legal pathway to do that. But I can tell you from my perspective and what I've been hearing from these politicians, here's what they would tell you in order to get you to support the national popular vote in like a state in Michigan to get this through. They will tell you that it makes Michigan, it gives it much more of a voice in these elections when the exact opposite is true. And I asked, and this was a Republican, shockingly, a couple years ago, who I was speaking to, he was advocating for the national popular vote. So I brought him on my program and we talked to him about this. And I said, well, how is it then? Here's the question for you. How is it that no matter how the state of Michigan votes for president, let's say that Michigan votes for Donald Trump, but a majority of the other states voted for Kamala Harris, how is it that if Michigan, even though they voted for Donald Trump, all that vote now goes to Kamala Harris because she won the popular vote? How does that give Michigan more of a vote? You're actually taking away all their votes. He had zero answers that made any sense. It's a ruse. It's deceit in order to get you to support it. It should not be supported because it gives all the power centralized to the high population states like California and New York. And those two states will in large part decide the elections well into the future. So Donald Trump, I don't think he can do anything unless he somehow gets the states again, the majority of them, to reverse this constitutional amendment. Orlando, always good to hear from you. Thanks so much. And I think we have one more. I think let's bring that up, and then we'll say goodbye. Laura Kurlovich. Sorry for the mispronunciation. I did it at least once. Tom, question for a future topic. Why is former Ward Smith Air Base in Escoda, Michigan, bringing in 350 semi-trucks from FEMA? That was brought up in October 20th Township meeting in Escoda. I did see that over the weekend, Laura, and I didn't dig deep enough into that to understand why that is, but there's a lot of speculation. That's all I know. But what are they doing here? And I remember back in the 90s, there was a lot of speculation that FEMA is wanting to build camps, for certain people, partisan, objectors or whatever, political opponents. I don't know what they're doing in Oscoda, but I will take a look at it. And maybe that would be a good conversation to have with someone in the know, who truly is in the know, not someone who says they are. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Laura. I'm glad you saw that. I saw it as well. We'll look into it. And I want to thank all of you for watching. Again, this edition of Tom Jordan Live is always a privilege to have you. Remember, you can subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, X, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, share the content. It helps us out a great deal. TomJordanLive.com if you want more information there as well. Until tomorrow, have a great day. God bless you. We'll see you then.